Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to a Blake Scholar Magic video. And today we are revisiting Sauron the Necromancer. This is going to be a really nice EDH deck tech for a really cool mono black commander. And really, what really makes this commander really go is basically having it come down, in an efficient way. Like, if you have a little bit of ramp turn 4, if you have a little extra acceleration, maybe even sooner than that. But basically, you want to kind of give it the best chance of having haste, because when this creature attacks, it also has menace to be to let you all know that as well. You get to exile a target creature card from your graveyard, then create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 3/3 black wraith with menace. At the beginning of the next end step, exile that token unless Sauron is your ring bearer. So we definitely want to have some kind of like synergy with that. We want to like kind of give, the ring tempt kind of a chance too. So we're definitely going to be playing the homies, the Nazgul. They're definitely going to be in here as well. But you can see like the importance already for this 5 Cossack commander is like a card like Lightning Greaves. So if this is already on the battlefield and we go ahead and cast Sauron from a command zone, we basically equipped the Greaves for free, and then we're swinging already. And we're getting that sweet reanimator effect from our graveyard. It's really beautiful. And you know what's really cool about that too is that becomes a token. And basically, it will stick around. It also has menace too, and it'll be attacking. So it's a 3/3 black wraith with menace that's going to be attacking. And then at the beginning of your next end step, exile that token. So, we're kind of looking for those one and done type of enter the battlefield triggers, or creatures that get their effects by dealing combat damage. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. Not attack triggering, we're dealing with the enter the battlefield and combat damage triggers. So these 3 are like kind of no-brainers in these colors. Like, you're not going to get Rhythm of the Wild or anything. You won't get like Rabbit Battery in these colors or things such as that, but you will get cards like Lava Spur Boots. So for instance, that's just a one colorless. Equip creature gets 1/0 and has haste and ward 1. And equip 1, that's a nice one there. Of course, Swiftfoot Boots is also just a nice option too. Equip creature has hexproof and haste. Then you equip 1. That's one very easy, very affordable rate. And then, of course, just the Lightning Greaves is obviously just like our goated card here, where we're going to slap this on Sauron and we're going to give it haste and shroud, and there's just a 0 equip cost. So that's really the ideal, but these other cards are fine too. I've also had lethal attacks, like with a Bloodletter of Aclazotz, like just randomly coming on the battlefield, like later in the game, and slapping on like a Lava Spur Boots and getting over for lethal. I mean, it's just like these kind of interesting, these tech cards are just so good in our colors, so we just love it. It just can really weaponize our creatures and get them going. So a key component of this particular build are the Nazgul, right? So what the Nazgul do is that they will provide the ring tempt when they enter the battlefield, and that's basically the major criteria for Sauron to have that token stick around. Otherwise, that exile token will just die at the end of the turn. And I think, is it exiled? Let's see. Yeah, it will be exiled actually. So that's just another benefit sometimes for the card to stick around, of course. Sometimes that will be in our favor. Really, it's not too big of a deal if we lose it. It's just kind of a bonus if we get to keep the creature. But on their own, we're going to be playing all 9 Nazgul, so you can just kind of see these beautiful Nazgul here. And what I found out about the Nazgul, kind of playing with them, is that these cards are just standalone cards. You don't really need, to really build too much around these things. They kind of just do it themselves. So what will happen with a Nazgul is that just by playing the Nazgul, it will come onto the battlefield and it will become a 2/3 with Death Touch, because it will see that the ring tempts you when it enters the battlefield, because that's what it enables with its enter the battlefield. And then whenever the ring tempts you, you put a 1/1 counter on each wraith you control. What kind of gets interesting with the Nazgul is that, of course, you can start off with your 2/3 Nazgul. If you cast another one, then you have 2, of course, and the ring will tempt the second time around, and then they'll both see that, so they'll basically pump each other up. So instead of getting the 1/1 for each ring tempt, you get 2/2 for each of the Nazgul when the ring tempts if you have 2 on the battlefield. So this would become a 4/5, and this one would become a 3/4 instead of a 2/3. So there's a little bit of stacking there, and oh my God, when you get like 3 Nazguls on the battlefield, you can see that all of a sudden, like, this thing went from a 4/5 and now it's going to be like a 7/8. And this is going to be, I think it was a 3/4 before. Now it's going to be a 6/7. And these things, they enable themselves and they get really strong. And they're only 3 mana. What's also really cool about this is the ring tempt mechanic. And it works really well for this deck because once we hit the second stage of ring tempting, we can start looting or drawing and discarding. So these cards get even better for us because we can go ahead and prepare on curve these creatures we want to go from our hand into the graveyard, so we can get the gas for the Sauron the Necromancer. Put the creature into the graveyard, and then let's go ahead and attack with Sauron. And then now we're going to get that creature reanimated and attacking and doing all the things we want it to do. So we're doing very strong things. It's just a really kind of fun deck. I love it. It's just really excellent to see it kind of work out. Now, let's talk about like kind of some of the payoffs, because I know you all like the kind of the payoffs. What are the kind of things that we really like to see in the graveyard? So that would be definitely like a Playcrafter type effect. So Playcrafter, Demon's Disciple, and Fleshbag Marauder, those are all really great effects for us. And they're really good here to just cast them on their own. They can go into the graveyard and they can stick there, so that we always kind of have a nice hit for Sauron, just kind of hanging out. And these are global effects for our commander table. So for instance, a Playcrafter hits the battlefield, and then each player will have to sacrifice a creature, including ourselves, and that's fine. So basically, we play Playcrafter an earlier turn, we sacrifice it. Our opponents have to sacrifice creatures if they have them. One is the criteria. And for this one, actually, it's a creature or planeswalker, which is really nice. And each player who can't discards a card. Oof, that's pretty brutal. So Playcrafter is definitely the top dog out of this. Demon's Disciple will just make a player sacrifice a creature or planeswalker. There will be no discarding involved. And Fleshbag Marauder will just sacrifice a creature. So those 3 are kind of like our conduit. We'll definitely be including those in the deck. So those 3 are in. Additionally, you have a really interesting hit like one of the newer cards, Unstoppable Slasher. And this is just a really interesting hit off of Sauron because, we could basically just take down like half a person's life total, like just like have like basically a menacing missile being sent at them with a Sauron the Necromancer. And when this thing hits, it will do the damage, and then they'll lose half of their life, rounded up. So it's really nasty. It can do like a lot of damage at once, and I think it's a good rate. This one would just be exiled if we, didn't have our ring tempt on Sauron at that time. It would be granted through like a Nazgul. So that's like a possibility. But just like I thought, it was just like kind of an interesting one. And it's one you can just cast on an earlier turn too, right? And you're not going to be sad about it either. So you have like a little balance always of like cards that you can play early, on the mana curve, and not be too sad about. So this would be one of those that fits. Just very powerful 3-drop, right? And not really that bad for a Sauron hit either. Now we have Ravenous Chupacabra. That's kind of another fits that mold where it can just be like a removal spell when it enters the battlefield, destroying a target creature. And once again, it's just like a decent hit out of our graveyard. So it's something that's castable for 4 mana, but it's also something that can be in the graveyard, and we won't be sad about resurrecting it and targeting one of our opponent's creatures with it. So we do like the Chupe. All right, now Sheoldred. So really what you'll notice about this particular deck is that it really just has like a lot of global effects. So this is one of those hits where it comes on the battlefield and each opponent must sacrifice a sacrifice a non-token creature or planeswalker. It's a little bit more of a higher priced, like Fleshbag Marauder, Plague Crafter effect. However, this one casting is great too. You can, once an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, we can flip this thing, and the true scriptures are no joke. So let's check this one out. So this is the one for each opponent in Chapter 1, we can destroy up to 1 target creature or planeswalker that player controls. For Chapter 2, each opponent discards 3 cards and mills 3 cards. Number 3, put all creature cards from all graveyards on the battlefield under your control, exile the true scriptures, and return to the battlefield. Would be nice to see one of these kind of get through in an EDH table. Not always like, the best possibility, but maybe if we put enough pressure on, we could get to like a Chapter 3, which would be very cool for us. On face value, though, this is just like another effect where if it resurrects, all of our opponents have to sacrifice a creature or planeswalker that's non-token, and we love that. All right, so here's the Gray Merchant of Asphodel, and this one is just probably our best card, bar none. It will keep us in the game. It will create victories for us. This is the one where we're going to be very happy to cast it and then have it die during various circumstances. We have ways to get cards into our graveyard and from the board, and then resurrect it once again and like loop it once again with the Sauron the Necromancer. We really kind of like that effect. Otherwise, just having this in the graveyard and just getting a one off of it, like a one of from the Sauron the Necromancer, seems pretty decent as well. So we just like that. We're just going to gain a lot of life on it. We're going to have a lot of permanents on the battlefield that have black on it. So we're going to get that life, and we're going to gain a lot of life from it as well. Okay, here's Massacre Worm. Just another fantastic hit. My main focus for Sauron, and I think maybe in Reanimator in general, friends, is that it's kind of about hitting global things and affecting the board. So you're going to really love a Massacre Worm because, when you're attacking with Sauron, you can make the creatures less powerful. A lot of creatures are going to die on that battlefield at once, and it's going to let your Sauron get through much easier. So we just love Massacre Worm. And the fact that our opponents lose life based on the creatures that they have dying too is just really sweet as well. So we just love that -2/-2 for all our opponents' creatures. It's just really cool stuff, and it's a good body. This is one of my favorite Reanimator targets for Sauron the Necromancer, definitely, is Burning Rune Demon. The reasoning why is because it kind of puts your opponent into an ultimatum where you get to put a sweet card in your hand and a sweet card into your graveyard. And we'll take both of those outcomes. We could put a Bolas Citadel and a Gary in our hand, and basically Gary could be lethal, for instance, if we were able to cast it. So they have to give us the Bolas Citadel, for instance, and now we have a Bolas Citadel and a Gary or a Gray Merchant of Asphodel in our graveyard, and now we're just living our best life. So that's kind of the strategy here with this card in particular. It's just amazing the fact that you are going to get a sweet card in your hand and a sweet card into your graveyard, because it's enter the battlefield trigger. It's a great hit for Sauron. The tutoring power is real, so we love that. Okay, so here's Archfiend of Sorrows. Now this is just another one that's going to just hit that board, right? And this is just one of those other sweet ones that we can get. You can do it in other ways. Maybe you want to resurrect something else other than the Archfiend this turn. Maybe you just want to unearth this guy for the 5 mana, and it comes on the battlefield hasted and flying and can deal 4, and all your opponent's creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. It's just a nasty card. So much value, just the value, plethora of value here. So we do love the Archfiend of Sorrows, and I think it's a great fit for kind of our theme and what we're trying to do. Otherwise, you're not going to be sad about just resurrecting this with the Sauron and having a lot of your opponent's things die. All right, guys. So this is backed onto let's just tutor something directly into our hand and not even have a wink about it. This thing is just going to be resurrected with Sauron, and then all of a sudden we can just go ahead and tutor up that Bolas Citadel we were talking about. Maybe we need some cards. Maybe we need a particular card for that moment. You know, maybe we need a removal spell, when we need like a board wipe. I mean, these are the things that we can get with our Runescar Demon. It's just an absolute bomb for us. And these demons are just out of control for this deck. Just tutoring anything we need. So I wanted to try this newer one. Usually I just go with the Dust Mangler because the criteria for casting it isn't so bad. I could like just discard a card if I could just cast it. This one has like more stringent. It's like you have to actually sacrifice a creature or enchantment to cast it. So that's kind of a downside. I'm hoping that like putting in like an Orcish Bowmasters will figure it out. I am kind of going over a hoop to play it, but I do like that it's a demon. Because we do have a demon tutor in here. We're playing some newer cards that are really geared for demons. So I think the Vile Mutilator could definitely be worth it. And the fact that if we do have this hit the battlefield, each opponent, it just has to enter, just basically resurrect it with Sauron. Each of our opponents will have to sacrifice a non-token enchantment, then sacrifice a non-token creature. So, ooh, that can be really nasty guy. So I'm hoping it's, you know, I kind of got burned with it, you know, and then I was like, because I couldn't cast it, and I was like, oh crap, I needed to, you know, sacrifice something else with it, which is a bummer in the claws to cast. But hopefully a card like Orcish Bowmasters can give us an additional fodder piece, you know, a little more creatures on the lower end, you know, 2 more hits for this. Sounds good, I think. I think it'll be okay. So there's the Vile Mutilator. And the hits just keep coming, everybody. So here's the Ancient Brass Dragon. This is 5 colorless, 2 black. Creature Elder Dragon, flying. Whenever Ancient Brass Dragon deals combat damage to player, roll a d20. When you do, put any number of target creature cards with total mana X or less from graveyards on the battlefield under control, where X is the result. What an amazing card! And once again, like just Sauron, just putting in some crazy work here, guys. You know, your base rate is 10, so you're going to be able to return, you know, totaling CMC of creatures 10, which would be fine, and that's a good rate. And so we could return something else and maybe another creature. We'd have some selection, I would assume. So we like the Ancient Brass Dragon. We're going to let it do its combat damage. It's I think it will be having, basically, let's see, it's a copy of the card, so it would be a flying 3/3 Wraith. So very hard to deal with Sauron. So I'm probably going to be getting in with this like 99% of the time and doing that combat damage. So we love it. We love it, guys. Oh my goodness, guys. Here's the Archon of Cruelty. You know, I kind of like maybe was really jazzed about this card. The thing about this is it's already going to be attacking with Sauron, but it will get that enter the battlefield trigger of like the opponent sacrificing a creature or planeswalker discarding a card. Lose 3 life, you draw a card and gain 3 life. So this one would definitely be one of the ones where we want to stick around so we can like continue to get those triggers. But I definitely want to try the Archon. I feel it's like a really good enter the battlefield trigger at the very least. So I'm still happy about it. Here's Valgavoth. This is more or less maybe one that we'd rather like stick around for a little bit longer as well. We will have like just regular reanimation spells, and I just wanted to have like a really big mega bomb for like, you know, reanimate, animate dead, victimize, even a Coiling Rebirth if it comes to that. We have Incarnation Technique. So we have some ways to get into this just regularly. So it doesn't just have to be, Sauron doesn't have to pick up all the weight. We can just have other kind of tech pieces that revolve around the strategy. So Valgavoth seems to work well. Just the fact that it's a 9/9 flying lifelink, has the ward, which is sacrifice 3 non-land permanents, which is good. Very hard to kill. And as things go away, you know, we have all those effects that kind of promote that. We can start casting those by paying life. So basically they go into exile instead for the opponent's graveyard from anywhere. So if a card you didn't control would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Wow, that's any of their cards. Wow, that goes to the graveyard. So wow, that's a lot of selection. During your turn, you may play cards exiled with Valgavoth. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its mana cost rather than pay its mana cost. Woo! So it's kind of like has like that Dalthi Voidwalker effect where their cards don't go into the graveyard any longer. They just are exiled instead, which is really interesting. And then those spells we can just cast. It's a really interesting card. Through life. Okay. So those are like our big hits, right? So those are the hits there. And there's our Sauron guy at the top. Let's go over like the ways that we're going to be putting things into the graveyard, because that's definitely important as well. So Entomb is just one of those really nice effects where you can just have at instant speed. You can take a card from your library and just put it into your graveyard. So that's just very good. You know, obviously that could be good for Sauron, just to like put something in that we want to hit, and then we can go from there. I'd say probably like some of our better hits, in my opinion, like are probably like the Grey Merchant of Asphodel, or the sacrifice effects are usually very good, like the basically Plaguecrafter, Sheldred. But it just depends on like the situation too. But if I have, for instance, if I wanted just to entomb something, like off the top of the back, it would probably even be like probably some of the demons that just tutor up on other things so that I can find Bola Citadel. Bola Citadel is definitely a win con for us. Here's Takanduma. So another interesting way to get cards into our graveyard that can also act as a land. So you can channel this card, and it will cost less for the amount of legendaries you have. And then you can mill 3 cards, so that's nice. We want to put cards into our graveyard, right? So, or it can just act as a land, so we just love that card. Putrid Imp, this is just a little homie. Like, you can imagine, like, if you really wanted to juice up your graveyard, like, perhaps you had, like, a Victimize, for instance, in your hand, and you basically wanted to leave with Imp, and perhaps maybe you even had, like, a Stinkwood Imp in your opener. Like, that'd be a really nice opener, because you could basically put Stinkwood Imp into the graveyard, and then you could start juicing it up, right? You could juicing it up for the next 2 turns. You could probably put about 10 cards into your graveyard. And then if you're hitting your land drops, then you can have a nice Victimize with your Putrid Imp. So that sounds like a really cool plan, and powerful. So we kind of like that kind of interaction there. Of course, Stitcher Supplier is also just a really nice one. This is that nice zombie, and it will mill the 3 cards upon entering, and when it dies, an additional 3, right? So that's cool. Mire Triton, you just get that 2 of mill immediately, and you get a nice Death Toucher, and you gain some life, so we love that. Here's Undead Butler, you get those nice 3 cards into your graveyard, and then when this dies, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Fantastic. Here's Stinkwood Imp, just the ultimate dredger. Have this into your graveyard. Instead of drawing for the turn, you just dredge 5, and then you return this to your hand instead of drawing a card. So amazing. Just put 5 cards into your graveyard. It's just a huge one. Great for my Greasefang deck as well. There's a lot of overlap for like these decks with Greasefang. There's a lot of borrowing of cards and exchanging of them because the cards work so well together. For the graveyard, very, very black orientated, right? As an additional cost, these are just amazing. Like the Bone Shards, Bitter Triumph cards, because you can just discard Mega Bombs into your graveyard if you just as selectively, and from your hand, and then utilize like the aforementioned like Animate Dead, or Reanimator, or have Sauron the Necromancer, like have a sweet card in the graveyard. This is how you enable that, like through Bone Shards. So not only do you get to destroy a target creature or planeswalker, but you get to put one of those cards in your graveyard selectively. Same thing with Bitter Triumph, or you can just lose the life. It's no big deal. This thing is at instant speed too. This is a mega hit. This is like the spell, like I think of like all the type of removal spells that are at this casting cost. And it's like Bitter Triumph has to be like way up there, like in the stratosphere. Just instant speed, destroy target creature or planeswalker. You could loot a card, you could pay your life. Like it's just so good. I just love this card. Here's your Incarnation Technique. This one's really nice too because you can demonstrate, so you can target an opponent. They'll also perform the task of milling 5 cards. Basically, you mill 5 cards, then you return a creature card from a graveyard to the battlefield, and it doesn't have to even be the cards that were milled. It just whatever was already in your graveyard. And then you can do that twice if you let your opponent do it as well. So you can politic with that. Just a sweet card, guys. Yeah, and we're going to love our hits, you know. Here's Shriekhorn. This is just a nice one. This is going to basically get 6 cards into our graveyard. And we just love everything about that. So other than that, it's just kind of just a stinker. But we just love that it puts cards into our graveyard, and it puts many. For 1 cost, it does a lot. Here's Palantir, and this one's a nice one, of course. This is like regurgitates value. It's like, it's a fun card. It's like a card that you can like just keep playing, and it just keeps surprising you of what you can do with it, and like how your opponents interact with it. It's just more so very interesting, and we love like setting this up to have cards come into our hand and punish our opponents when they put cards into our graveyard. So, you know, we could put cards in on the top that we like, and if we'll like them if they go to our hand, we'll like them if they go to our graveyard. You can kind of set it up like that, and you know, we have some really high casting cost cards in here, so they can really take some serious damage if they're not careful. Okay, here's the Ripples of Undeath. So this is just a really good new one from Modern Horizons 3. It kind of resembles like the Stitcher Supplier, where you're just milling 3 cards, right? But this thing does it like continuously. So at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, mill 3 cards. Then you may pay 1 colorless and 3 life. If you do, put a card from among those cards in your hand. Just absolutely amazing. I love this for like maybe fetching up some lands for us, kind of keeping us going on track with that and not having to worry. Then maybe just putting some other sweet cards into our graveyard and our hand. And then Timuret Calls the Dead, just like this gets 6 cards basically in over a course of 2 turns. You get some fodder, you get some 2/2 zombies. And then chapter 3, you gain X life and scry X, where X is the number of zombies control. Fantastic. All right, so there is our ways we're going to get stuff into the graveyard. And now, let's see. Yeah, we'll go through like the tech cards, I suppose. Let's see. Now, let's go over the resurrection spells. Yeah. So there's going to be a variety of ways to access our graveyard. So here is Agadim's Awakening, and we just love this card, of course, because it just hits so many different casting costs of creatures. We have a variety in our deck. So, you know, playing this for X equals 3 could be good. Playing it for things for higher would be good as well. So, and it can also act as a land. So return from your graveyard to your battlefield any number of target creature cards that each have a different converted mana costs X or less. So for instance, X is 3, we get to return like a Nazgul, an Undead Butler, and a Putrid Imp, for instance. And that would be great. So things like that. Of course, it could be played as a land, so that's like a nice land resurrection spell. Then you have Reanimate, which is just a mega card. And this can hit any opponent's graveyard and your own. So you can just return any creature in there for the low cost of 1. You'll lose the life equal to its converted mana cost, but so what? What a powerful card. Love Reanimate. Animate Dead, similarly to that, just an additional casting cost, and the creature perpetually gets 1. Oh, it's interesting because you get devotion from this too. It sticks to the battlefield as an enchantment. So we really like that actually for Animate Dead. And yeah, we get to resurrect any creature from any of the graveyards, so it's really good. Victimize. This one is like just a special card. I did talk to the dojo about this one. And basically, this is an interesting one because this one will just go on the stack. So you cast it, and basically, it will just go on the stack as is, and your opponent can interact with the spell. Once it resolves, you have to choose 2 target creature cards in your graveyard. So you choose them, and then sacrifice a creature. So all that basically goes in at once. Like for instance, we couldn't like sacrifice a Stitcher Supplier and get more looks into our graveyard and choose 2 new creatures based on those hits. Basically, you do all this, you do all the choosing prior to like the death triggers of other things. So basically, that's an interesting part of the spell. So you cast the victimize. It has people can interact with it at that time, and then you will go ahead and perform the characteristics of the card. So just a really interesting one overall. Still a very interestingly worded card as well, and definitely probably one that's caused a lot of confusion. But as I understand the spell, and you can also look into this as well if you want to talk about it in the comments. But I do believe this one just basically it goes onto the stack, and then basically, this is what the card does. Your opponents can choose to interact with it at that time. And then I believe that it takes place, these actions take place. So it is an interesting one, and I will look into it a little bit further. I do have a feeling that is kind of how it works. You don't have to sacrifice anything before, as an additional cost to cast the spell. I believe it is just casted. And then the opponents can interact with it then, and then your targets you choose, once it resolves, you choose these things, right? Choose the 2 target creature cards in your graveyard, sacrifice a creature. If you do, return those chosen cards to the battlefield tapped. So a humongous card, just extremely strong, guys. Beautiful art. You have your sacrifice here and these 2 little candles for the creatures being resurrected. Absolutely insane. All right, here's your Coiling Rebirth. So that's a nice one as well. So this is a newer one from Bloomborough. I really like it from our non-legendaries, of course. And it'll give us back the creature in its essence. Plus, once we gift a card, which we will likely, we'll get a 1/1 copy of the other creature. So it would be really cool, like a Massacre Worm or our Archfiend that does a -2/-2 as well. We can definitely bomb a board and really take control of the game. All right, so there's my reanimation spells. I think they're very cool. Of course, we had Incarnation Technique too to round that out. Here's our tech cards, as you would say. So let me get my tech cards out. So here we have the Orcish Bowmaster here. And then let's see, we'll come back to the Orcish Bowmaster. These I would consider my tech cards here, like your Malika Rebirth. This will basically act as a land, or it will resurrect a tapped land, or that produces swamp. Or you can use it to target one of your creatures that was going to die on that particular turn, and it will return to the battlefield tapped when it dies that turn. So that is a really cool card, of course. Then we have Demonic Council. This is an awesome card from Dustmourne. This Dustmourne just really pumped up our deck a lot, guys. It gave a lot of demon synergy, and we have plenty of those in our deck. So we can search up a Bloodletter of Alcalazats here. We can search up our Rune Demon. Any of the demons that we kind of serve our purpose for that time, we can just do it. And then if there are 4 more card types among cards in your graveyard, instead search your library for any card, put it into your hand, and shuffle. Here's the One Ring. We just love this card so much. Of course, you can just get this out on an earlier turn with a card like Dark Ritual, for instance. Then you'd be really pumping your cards. So we love the One Ring for that kind of opportunity. Bloodletter of Alcalazats is just probably the best investment. I think I got this for 20-something bucks, and it's just, I know it keeps climbing. This card is so messed up. It's just, the amount of damage that it does is kind of intriguing. Doubling, basically having opponents lose twice the life that they would instead. So their loss of life is doubled. It's just brutal. And for instance, if you have a Unstoppable Slasher, I think you just KO opponents on this. Basically having if you basically touch anybody with a whatchamacallit, the Unstoppable Slasher with a Bloodletter on the battlefield, I think they just get KO'd no matter what their life total is. So it's basically because they lose half their life and they lose half their life again, or they lose twice that much life, which would be their life total. So nasty stuff, guys. And it's in a flyer too. Yikes. So it can get in too. Here's the Bolas Citadel I was talking about. This card's just amazing. You just it does so well with like Nykthos too, your devotion lands. This card is just everything for mono black. And you can go on some sick runs. You could be at like 9 life and then all of a sudden play like a Bloodletter and a Grey Merchant of Asphodel, and then you're just back in the game. It's just really amazing stuff. So really, I really love just like kind of searching this out. And if I find this, I feel very comfortable if it's on the battlefield. So there's that. And let's see. Here's our removal suite. And again, thanks for coming out, guys. You always kind of surprise me with all the support you give me. So thanks for joining. Send a like my way. Maybe share the deck with your friends. I know a lot of people got into me in this channel because of this commander. So I'm going to keep it going, and I really like it. The love has not faded. So it's getting stronger and stronger with some of these sets. So these are just like our sweet like removal pieces, like Orcish Bowmasters. Also can act as like fodder with like the Vile Mutilator. Like I said, like giving up the token isn't too bad, right? You just have like the Meat Hook Massacre, of course, which is just a great removal spell. Toxic Deluge. These are just like global, devastating spells. Extinction Event. Blood on the Snow is just a full board wipe for creatures or planeswalkers. And then we have these nice lands, Fel the Profane and Hagra Mauling. So we just kind of round out our deck. We have a lot of removal here, a lot of pressure. In addition, here's just some of our ramp pieces. So I consider like Nykthos definitely a part of that. This thing will be tapping for like 5 mana, so 3 mana. Usually over then it's you net mana with this basically through devotion, through the black pips, the amount of black pips that you are under your control on the battlefield. And you have Phyrexian Tower, which is just a nice one. We can sacrifice our creatures here. For instance, our Grey Merchant, we can sacrifice that, put it back in the graveyard, and then resurrect it again with Sauron for lethal. It's just going to be great stuff like that. Crypt of Agadim, just an amazing card. It's going to see all the creatures in our graveyard and give us mana based on that. So we're going to net some mana with that. Cabal Stronghold, we're not going to play too many techie lands, but we will have enough. And just probably enough where Cabal Stronghold can get there and perhaps net us some mana. Otherwise, it's just going to tap us for colorless, which is fine. Here's Dark Ritual for that nice little acceleration. So that will give us that can get into our commander, can get us into a One Ring, can get us into a 5 mana Sheoldred. It just really just depends. Like we have lots of high casting cost things. So at the very worst, it's going to help cast our commander, which is fine. Here's Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Jet Medallion, Felwar Stone, Mind Stone, Black Market Connection. What Dark Ritual could do good for turn 1 Black Market too. Yeah, baby. All right, and the last thing is the lands. These are all 30 of the snow lands. They're just beautiful. And there's a whole bunch of them there. And that's the deck, everybody. So thanks for joining me today. Let's just kind of take a look at the action here. It's really nice to see a deck come together. I think I did have like Dust Mangler and Meteor Golem in here instead of Orcish Bowmaster and the that new demon that I had mentioned that you have to sacrifice a creature. But I did have it and I want to try it out, so I want to give it a chance. So here's the deck, guys. Otherwise, like a Meteor Golem, Dust Mangler, look into those cards. They're beautiful here. Meteor Golem just to take out any permanent when it's resurrected upon entering the battlefield, and Dust Mangler, like having your opponents sacrifice creatures and discard cards and you gain life. It's just a lot of value. So I don't think you can really go wrong with this deck. I think you're going to be pretty satisfied. At the very worst, your plan B is the Nazgul. Just the Nazgul on their own. Just these cards in general are just so strong. And they get really powerful, and they can really dictate the selection you get by the looting effect. And they're just really, really cool cards in general. So we just love the Nazgul. Love the haste here that we added. Having Lightning Greaves available is just huge for our game plan. Really love that for Sauron to just, come on and impact the board immediately. These effects are not to be underestimated. Playcraft or Demon's Disciple and the Fleshbag Marauder, those are just not something to be scoffed at. I am acquiring the 2 others right now, but These cards are really good glue for the deck. I think they're required. Yeah, they're pretty much essential for this commander is the Playcrafter effects. So yeah, they're just great because basically think about it, guys. They go into the graveyard and that's where we want things to be. We want things to be in the graveyard and we want to get the value from them with the Sauron. So, I mean, they go into the graveyard themselves. They impact the board. They go into the graveyard. They come back with Sauron. They impact the board once again, you know. So we just love all these cards so much. There's nice little rampy lands, and then we have this little mana base here, and these little acceleration pieces. Got a good balance of like resurrection spells, and then just like a decent amount of lands, so we can actually cast some of the things that we want to. And that's the deck, everybody. So thanks so much. Send me up with a subscribe if you'd like, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.